I'm joined by CBIC Chairman Sanjay Agarwal. Welcome to NDTV Profit, sir. I'd like to start with, that reduction in tariff is of course a welcome move, but somewhere AIDC, which is the agriculture cess, complicates it. So when would we see that it is phasing out, sir?
In this rate rationalization exercise, basically what we have done is that we have removed the high tariff rates, which we found that there were very few items on these tariff rates, but unnecessarily the optics about the Indian tariff was getting a bad name. So the rates which were not required, we have eliminated 7 such rates and brought it down to 70% or 20%. This is what we have done. But at the same time, we have tried to keep that duty incidence at the same level by imposition of AIDC, equivalent AIDC or slightly lower AIDC, so that industry does not feel the shock of this exercise. But now these AIDCs are in a different schedule, and we have done this identification exercise. And after that, after stakeholder consultation through the line ministries, we can have a look whether these AIDCs need to continue at the same rate or can be tapered over a period of time.
So is this going to be aligned with the compensation cess regime, which is, ending in March 2026, sir?
No, this AIDC is for a different purpose. It is levied as a duty of customs under a Finance Act. So the purpose of levying it is different. It is for a specific purpose of agriculture and infrastructure development purpose. Whereas compensation cess in GST is for the purpose of compensating the state for providing the growth of 14% in their revenue, GST revenues. And subsequently, it is now being continued for little time for repayment of the loans which were taken during the pandemic.
Talking about the custom duty, sir, as you know also that US administration is talking about high tariff countries, and of course India is also among them. So just wanted to understand, we have seen some measure, in terms of reducing import duty on certain items, including, motorbikes. Do we see further such measure? Do we see further reduction in some of the imported items in a short term?
If you see the rate structure prior to this exercise, that there was one item on 150%, as effectively one item on 125%, there were 3 items on 100%, and outside India, they will say that India has 150%, 125%, 100%. So very bad optics were created, but few items were there. So we have brought down the tariff rate on 70% on these rates and imposed the equivalent amount of AIDC. As such, in this conducting this exercise, on certain items, the AIDC which has been imposed is slightly lower than the difference in the effective duty incidence. So there is some reduction on certain items, but largely it has been kept at the same level.
Okay, so any reduction do we see in as a part of the exercise in the short term, sir? Have you made a list of these items?
Yeah, on certain items the duty has really come down, like in case of solar modules. Earlier it was 44%, it has come down to 40%. Similarly on the motor vehicles like the buses and trucks, it was 44%, 40% plus 10% SWS. Now it has been brought down to 40%. Similarly, there are other items also on which the rate of duty has been decreased, really decreased. Say for example on items for dutiable goods which are imported for personal use, if not freely importable. Earlier the rate was 35%. Correct. Now it has been brought down to 20%. So this is an effective reduction. Similarly on passenger baggage, rates have been reduced from 38.5% to 35%. So there are reductions on certain items. Actually it is resulting into total revenue loss of 2,600 crores on custom side.
Okay. Sir, but what's your thought around that US keep telling that we are high tariff countries? But do you see that lot of item is actually attracting high tariff, or you think that it's not the case at this point of time?
I would like to mention that we have analyzed the top 30 items which are exported from USA to India. And we have found that rates on these items are minimal. The item which is covering the maximum value is the crude oil. On crude oil, there is 1 rupee per metric ton duty. There is hardly this is negligible. LNG on 5% rate of duty. Similarly, coal is imported from USA. On coal, there is 2.5% duty. Diamonds are imported, cut and polished. There is 5% duty on that. If it is uncut, raw diamond, it is nil rate of duty. Airplanes, if it is imported by scheduled operators, there is nil duty. If it is by non-scheduled operator, there is 3% duty. Chemicals and petrochemicals, it is 7.5% duty. If you see this entire gamut of imports of majorly imported items from USA, rate of duties are within 10%.
Within 10%.
Only on few items which are not in substantial quantity, maybe certain motorcycles which are imported of very high cc. There the rate of duty was 50%, which has been brought down to 30% if it is more than 1600 cc. These kind of motorcycles are normally not manufactured in India. Motorcycles which are manufactured in India, there the rate has been kept slightly higher at 40%. So this is the way we have conducted this exercise.
Many like lesser items in the high tariff category,
Yes.
you meant. Sir, a lot of talks around the levy of safeguard duty on the steel. So any plans there, particularly because we have now seeing the larger capacity, in terms of domestic, scheme of things. Then why the import from, import are so high in steel?
On steel, yes, there is a demand from the steel sector for raising the import duty on steel. But generally, the duties should not be raised because the steel is used by manufacturing of capital goods, by MSME sector. So there will be all around push in the prices if duties on steel is raised. But definitely, if there is a cheaper imports coming from for certain parts of the world, which may be not as per the market value. So there the issues will be looked into by the DGTR.
Okay.
And if there is a case for imposition of any anti-dumping duty or safeguard duty.
Did you
But so
receive
far,
any?
The Ministry of Finance has so far not received any report from DGTR in this regard.
Okay, but will you consider if you receive any such safeguard duty levy, in a short term?
Once the report is received, then it is examined, some stakeholder consultation if required is also done, then a view is taken whether to impose or not to impose the duty.
So quickly moving on, a lot of issue around, misclassification of import component. Some, foreign car makers are also facing some notices, etc. So just wanted to understand what is the issue and how department is dealing with that.
The cars, if these cars are imported, and all the components which are required for the manufacture of the car, essential components, are imported, then the car is to be considered as if imported in CKD condition, unassembled condition. On CKD condition, there is a rate of duty of 30% in past. Whereas in case of parts and components, duties may vary from 5% to 15%. So if car is imported, and all essential parts are imported, duty should have been paid at that 30% rate. But what we have noticed, certain car manufacturers, not all, some have paid at the rates applicable to CKD. Some have not paid on certain models the duties which were applicable to CKD. And they paid at lower rate of 5 to 15%, and the consignments have come from different ports. So there was a splitting of consignments. So and by that way, the lower rate of duty has been claimed. And now in such cases, notices have been issued to such car manufacturers for the imports made by them in past.
But is it being done deliberately, you think, or they were not aware because of the misclassification or the classification issue which is there at this point?
If you see that generally in these cases, the investigations started in the year 2022 and now culminated into issuance of the show cause notices wherever any lapse has been noticed on part of the car manufacturers. In case of individual cases, facts have been discussed in the show cause notices.
Okay. Okay. So quickly also on the point that, central excise bill was introduced last year, we have seen. What is the progress there? And, do you think that it requires some sort of consensus on the part of whether first petroleum be into the GST ambit and then perhaps you will take a call on that? Is it related somewhere?
On central excise, yes, central excise bill is now earlier sent for stakeholder consultation and different ministries, interministerial consultations. Now we have received the inputs, and those inputs have been incorporated, and now it will be going for further approvals so that it can be introduced in the parliament. But as far as bringing these 5 petroleum products into the ambit of GST is concerned, in last GST Council meeting, that was in 55th GST Council meeting in Rajasthan, on ATF the issue was taken up before the GST Council, but GST Council did not recommend it for its inclusion in GST.
But because I knew that states was not in consensus as far as bringing ATF under the GST purview. But do you think that any sort of review is required from here? Department is reviewing, especially the fitment panel?
The thing is that there is revenue implication on ATF, the taxes which are accruing to the states. In case it is brought under GST, it will be available as ITC to the airlines. Naturally, this revenue will have to be covered from somewhere, either from that sector or from some other sectors. So because of revenue implications, it is not always possible to build the consensus.
But are you positive that state may come up with some consensus on this particular part? Because this has been the long-standing demand, sir.
It is a long-standing demand, and they are varying VAT rates on ATF fuels. So, but the issue is on the revenue part. So, whether the states are ready to forego that much revenue, can we increase the rates which will be applicable to the airlines in case we have to cover up that revenue loss from the airline sector? So, these are all interlinked questions. So we have to consider this entire gamut of things before a consensus can be built.
Last question, sir. We have seen responses on the special drive as far as input tax credit fraud is concerned. Are you planning any, special drive of a similar sort of scheme of thing in the coming fiscal year as well?
On special drives against fake ITC, yes, every year, last year also we conducted one exercise. The outcome was good. Last year also we conducted another exercise. Again, the outcome was good. But the thing is that to curb this entry of fake entities in the GST ecosystem, and when then they start seeding fake ITC in that, we have taken other policy measures also. So like biometric-based Aadhaar authentication, now that scheme has been rolled out nationally. Earlier there was a pilot in few states. So wherever this pilot has been run, we have found that there was drastic reduction of the entities which were entering into this ecosystem. So that is under rollout in different states. So once it is rolled out in all states, definitely it will be a curb on such kind of entities entering into ecosystem and polluting the entire system.
On the dispute part only, sir, when do we see GST Appellate Tribunal to be operational?
For GST Appellate Tribunal, there are two things. One is that appointment of the members to the tribunal. Second is creation of infrastructure, that is by way of hiring the office premises. Third is by way of keeping that application ready so that everything can be done online by GSTN. I think on the third thing, enough work has been done. On other two, work is going on, and maybe it will take shape in near future.
Maybe any timeline for that, sir?
Difficult for me to say.
Thank you so much, sir, taking out time for NDTV Profit. Thanks a lot, sir.